Welcome to the channel, guys. Today I'm excited. We're going to go over the classic George Benson solo from his 1968 album, Giblet Gravy. It's got a great lineup on the album. He's got Herbie Hancock on piano, Ron Carter on bass, Billie on drums. And there's a lot to get out of on this Billie's Bounce solo. This is actually track 10 on the album. It was a bonus track. We're going to go through about 8 different phrases, lines, licks in 3 main categories. So you're going to want to stick around to the end. So we're going to talk about triads and arpeggios, how Benson uses those in some really interesting ways and in some simple ways, actually. And then we're going to talk about his bebop vocabulary, so how he uses some of the bebop language and certain chromaticism. And then we're also going to talk about how he uses some blues. So what I love about Benson is he always throws in some blues, whether it's blues scale, blues licks, some of his like iconic double stops. So we're going to look at all of that. Real quick, I do want to mention at Jazz Memes we have some new merch. So you guys might see I'm wearing our practice shirt, and we also have a vibe shirt along with a bunch of other phrases you guys can check out in the description below. These come in white or black, and we sell these all around the world. We'll ship anywhere jazz is playing. So you guys can go check that out in the link below. All right, so let's get into it. So starting off on this solo, the first phrase I want to go over is actually before his solo begins. And it's one of the ways he plays this phrase right here. So this is over A minor 7, D7 into G minor, right? It's a 2-5 going into that last section of the blues, the last 4 measures. And he has a nice little kind of half sweep. So let me find that here. It's coming up right here. Right here. It's really pretty straightforward. He's going with the A minor 7 arpeggio, so E, C, A, G, sliding G to F sharp. So it's classic 7th going into 3rd, 7th of A minor going into the 3rd of D7. Jumping up to the E flat, and then finishing off that enclosure, which is, again, classic bebop stuff, to end up on the 5th for G minor. And what I recommend for these kind of phrases, especially ones that are this fundamental, is you want to move them around on the guitar, not only in key, but also position and string set. So say I'm here, I'm visualizing this A minor 7, this D7, and then we're ending on that D, right? So I don't really want to visualize this G minor shape since that's outside of the note that I'm playing. I want to think of this in this position, kind of like this inversion in that section. So all this is right here. So you can think about it like this G minor. If I'm ending on that note, I need to be able to visualize in my mind the chord that goes over that note. So not this G minor, because then if I'm moving this or when I want to play that phrase and hear it in my mind, I won't be able to execute it. So the way you'd move it around, just to demonstrate that, so say I want to do that same phrase but over the C minor F7, say leading into the B flat 7, I would go here. It starts on that 5th, right? All right, moving on to our next phrase. It starts us off right towards the beginning of his solo, but let's listen to it. Here's the start of solo. So that's the part I want to get. So he's over F7 and he goes, right? And we'll just do that much of the phrase. What's interesting here is he's playing essentially an A major 7 arpeggio over F7, which is a little unusual. And it works because we are starting on that 3rd, so we get that harmony. And after he gets that top note, we kind of hear it as like a A flat over F, like a kind of bluesy sound. And he just walks that chromaticism down until it resolves. And then we get that 7th to 3rd, the E flat to B flat 7 on the next part. So you should hear that resolve. It's like F7, resolving to B flat 7. So that's a really interesting one in his use of triads or arpeggios in maybe an unexpected way. Let's look at our next phrase, and this is a blues phrase that is probably the most well-known phrase from this solo. Right here. All right, so that's definitely one you're going to want to get, and he goes. All right, so let's break this one down a little bit. He's sliding in A to B flat, and then down picks on D, F, A flat, sliding into A, and then up pick on C, down on B flat, and then you jump to this double stop. So double stop's just a couple notes played together. And we have that hammer on pull off on the G, A flat to G. And then the same kind of up sweep, similar to what we had before, where it's fine if you get some muted strings. We're really just trying to get that last B flat heard, and as you get better with it, you'll get more clear. But part of the sound is definitely, it's a bluesy sound, it's a little bit messy sounding. As long as you get that last B flat. And then another pretty standard melody in a blues that you want to get used to, so A, C, D, F. All right, so that's a great blues one. You definitely want to check that one out. This one I wouldn't move into other positions just because this is kind of the classic place to do that double stop, and it doesn't fit as well in other positions. All right, so for our next phrase, we're going to look at some more classic bebop language from Benson. And this one's really cool. He's using some different triads and then also using chromaticism around those basic triads to create some interesting lines. Right here. All right, so let's look at that phrase. So this is on the section where we have D7 and we're leading into the last 2/5, the G minor into C7. So and then that's where I'll stop the phrase. So let's kind of break this down. He's doing a C triad as a sweep, and that slides into that third for D7. So he's using essentially this C major triad with D7, and then using that slide from G to F sharp to give him the third. Again, the same kind of sixth jump up to D. And then a lot of enclosures here. So he's circling that G, F sharp, A, G, and then here F, D, D. Right around the E of, you can think of this as C7, and then going down. Again, another chromaticism leading into that 7th. So we circled it 3rd, and then we go down into the 7th. So the whole phrase. And he just ends it with another type of blues phrase. So this is a great one to analyze how he's using just the chord tones. He's really, whether he's thinking of it, the chord tones in his mind or not, he's really playing through the chord tones to play through the changes. That's what's creating the sound of C7, as he's targeting that G to F sharp, that 5th of C7, or you could think of the root of G minor, the 3rd, the 7th, right? If you want to go through this phrase in other spots, again, I would think of it as this G minor and this C7. Right? So those two. So if I want to take that phrase and move it around in a different key, keeping in mind that position, say G minor and C, maybe I want to do it as a 2/5 F minor and B flat 7, so I can use that same phrase in the B flat 7 section of this. I would see where that is in relation to the shape of the chords, and so that'd be right here. And that that way I can move that phrase around. All right, so we still have a few more phrases, so stick through this. This is sort of a masterclass through Benson's Billie's Bounce solo, and I'm actually going to put twice as many phrases in a new course I'm creating for jazz blues. So if you're interested in diving into how to play through a jazz blues, this is more geared towards the beginner intermediate guitarist or an advanced guitarist that teaches other guitarists and wants to have a framework for teaching jazz blues. You could also take this course and learn a lot. I'm going to include a lot of these vocab savers where I'm playing through certain solos from classic recordings and then analyzing them for the students. All right, so let's keep going with this next phrase through some interesting triads. Right here. All right, so this is the section of the solo where he's playing over D7, and it's an A flat major triad, D flat triad. And then the interesting thing here is the harmony, instead of feeling like it's going right to G minor, it kind of goes to that C minor. So what's happening here is he's doing A flat. A flat is the 5 of D flat, so he gives us D flat, and he gives us basically a D flat 7 arpeggio, like a D flat, resolving almost down to C minor. With that B going up to C, E flat, D, B flat. So kind of spells out like a C minor 9. And then jumping down to play a D major triad, and that resolves into G minor. So if we were playing chords over this, it's like he's playing A flat, D flat 7, C minor, D, G minor. He's really jumping around and superimposing a lot of other harmony over this, but together it sounds great. And then going into our next phrase, he goes immediately into right, so let's take a look at this. This is over that G minor C7 portion, but really towards the end of that C7 where it goes into the turnaround at the end of the blues, the F7, G, C, back to the top. And so what he's doing here is thinking of that 2-5 really just as C7. And he keeps playing over that C7 until he gets into the blues lick. So this is all over that C7. And now that E, where he's playing it, is actually on the F7 already. But he doesn't really care because he just resolves later. So he's really treating that whole thing, in a sense, as a 5 chord, a C7, until we get back to the top. So and Benson loves this kind of sliding into the third and then up to the root. It's also worth working out all of these spots where he's playing with the rolls with the finger. So he has notes on adjacent strings on the same fret, or pretty close to the same fret, because they can be a bit tricky to do at speed. All right, our next phrase is another one with the triads, and this one is over F7. So there's a lot to get from this. All right, so again, this is over F7. He starts off with an E flat major triad, F triad, F sharp triad, and the first part of a B major triad. So what's going on here? So if it's F7, within F7 we have an E flat triad within the general key. You could think F mixolydian, or however you want to think of the notes for F7. We would have an E flat major triad, an F major triad, right? And he's playing this as an upbeat, so like 1 and 2 and 3. And then going up to F sharp takes us out, right? So this is what we might call sidestepping. But because he goes F sharp to B, that's another 5 to 1, F sharp going to B. That B is leading us into B flat. So the B leads us into the B flat 7 because of chromaticism. So he gets the, and then once he hits that D, that's our resolution. So what we can learn here is when using those triads, he starts off in triads that are within the key, and then he quickly moves to some triads that are outside of the key, but then slides back in. So it's this sidestepping idea where you start off in harmony, you go outside of the harmony, and then slide back in chromatically. Usually a half step above, and then you slide down chromatically, a half step. All right, so we got 2 more phrases. At this point, if you guys are sticking around, make sure you like and subscribe. You can comment below any feedback for this video or any other future ideas you'd like me to cover. So we have a couple more. Let's look at those phrases. All right, so we have a long line here, and this is actually going to be our last one for this video. He has this whole phrase, so it's 2 beats up front, and then 1, 2. All right, so this is starting on, the whole line really starts again on D7, and then going G minor, C7, and then turn around, back to the top. So what do we have going on here? He starts off with basically in G minor, even though he's over D7. And then from here, he's playing over that D7 altered, right? And then this one is a tricky roll. So it's E flat, B flat, F sharp, D. And then all of these enclosures that some of which we've seen before. A, C, B flat. All these, right? So you have, right? This is a really cool one, the F sharp, G, D, F, E, to lead into that 3rd sound. He goes to finish that C9 arpeggio. It's this C7 sound. And then this next whole part, I want you to think of this as an F major triad, like F, A, C, or this C, F, A, this kind of F. And then the notes he's using are all chromatic approaches into notes around that F major triad. So it's a really interesting way of thinking of the F major triad and then adding some tension around that. So at that part, so he's going E, F, B flat, A, C, B to C, and then G, F, C. So it's really just this. So I want you to listen for that F sound and how each of those notes lead you in there. Tension, release, tension, release, tension. Play the phrase one more time. Awesome line to get. All right, guys, thanks for sticking around. I will analyze the rest of that solo in my upcoming course, Jazz Blues. So if you want to check that out, you can get on the waiting list and be the first to know about it when it releases. Thanks for sticking around this long, and I hope you enjoyed.